Well, we are back to break down the top 5 quarterbacks in the new look Big 12, 16 teams, a lot of former Pac 12 teams, of course, the former G5 teams in the mix as well. And a lot of the newcomers are going to take over this top 5 list. It's newcomers in the Sunflower State to spoil it just a little bit. We'll start at the top, and this might be a controversial take to some that have anointed our number 2 quarterback as we have the number 1 pick in the draft, but Jalen Daniels of Kansas is our number 1 quarterback in the Big 12 entering 2024. He's followed closely behind by number 2 Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado.
In my opinion, not that close behind. I know that we're supposed to love Shedeur, and he's a very, very talented player, but I think that Jalen Daniels stands head and shoulders above the rest of the Big 12 in terms of what he brings to the table for Kansas. He's an extremely good quarterback. I think he's proven it in his time at Kansas. He's, a leader. He's put up lots and lots of points, and so I don't see how you don't look at Jalen Daniels as this top quarterback. He can do it all. He can run. He can pass, and he's got a pretty good team around him. That I think, when you look at the system that they have him in, you look at what they're able to do offensively, you look at some of the strides Kansas has made these last several years, Jalen Daniels is a massive part of that, right? He's a huge part of why Kansas is in the position they're currently in, and why, even last week we were talking about, well, Kansas hitting 9 wins seems like a pretty good bet. If Kansas hits 9 wins, I mean, we're talking about a different era of college football, and the experience and the leadership of Jalen Daniels is the biggest reason why for that Kansas program. He's a very talented quarterback, and I think that when you look at what anybody else in that conference has proven, there's maybe one other guy with a resume that looks like what Jalen Daniels has done, but maybe has a couple more injury concerns than what Daniels has. But nobody else in this conference has done what Jalen Daniels has been able to do at Kansas.
Well, and Jalen Daniels has injury concerns as well. So this is predicated on him completing
not as many as the other guy with the accolades.
Well, yes, and we'll get to him in just a minute. But I will say Jalen Daniels has yet to complete a full season as a starting quarterback. So the Jayhawks have to find a way to keep him healthy. I don't know if that's running less and trusting his arm more, if that's blocking better, like whatever that needs to be, he needs to be on the field for this to come to fruition. And if he's on the field, he's electric. When he's on the field, he's without a doubt the most exciting quarterback in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. And he just has to stay on the field. It's that plain and simple. If he can stay on the field, I think your Kansas 9-win movement has a great chance, and he's going to
we're hoping for
a lot of fun. Defense can step up a little bit at times too, just be opportunistic. Mm-hmm. Jalen can stay healthy. We're going to be partying like it's 2007 Lawrence, and I think we're all here for that as college football fans. But to make the case for Shedeur Sanders, if you put him on almost any other college football team last year, he's in New York. Probably like his numbers were just outlandish for an offense and a team really that just couldn't buy a win down the stretch of the season. And obviously, it's really easy to hate on Coach Prime, to hate on what they're doing in Colorado. And I would put the odds, I would take the under on their win total. I think it's at 5.5 right now. And I would confidently bet the under at 5.5. But you can't deny the talent that he is putting out here. He is not the problem at Colorado. And he is not going to be the problem at Colorado this year. They asked him to throw the ball 430 times last year. He completed 69.3% of his passes. Mm-hmm. Over 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. That doesn't even take into account his running prowess. He ran the ball really well, just doesn't show in the stats because he has negative 77 yards because of all the sacks that he took.
He took a lot of sacks.
And I don't know that they've improved that offensive line. So I don't know that he's going to get to be the number 1 quarterback in the Big 12, because can you be the number 1 quarterback in your conference if you don't lead your team to a bowl game? I don't think so. So that's a big tiebreaker for me. Talent on the field. He might get drafted. I think he will get drafted much higher than Daniels in the NFL draft next year, but that's not what we're breaking down. We're breaking down best college quarterbacks right now in their college career, and that's why I lead Daniels over Sanders.
Yeah, and Shedeur Sanders is extremely talented. Let me make a comparison real quick, not in terms of play style. They do not play the same style
They
of
don't.
football.
Yeah, that's a very lazy comparison.
Well,
If we
but
were to
so
use that.
so in terms of Shedeur Sanders, here's the comparison that I want to make. I think Shedeur Sanders suffers from a similar thing that Philip Rivers did when he was in the NFL, where if you were to ask me who are some of the most talented quarterbacks of the last 20, 25 years, Philip Rivers has to be on that list. He has to be towards the top of that list. He's extremely talented. They just never won. They just didn't win when it mattered. And that's kind of what Shedeur struggled with last year. I know it's just one sample size and he got one game and it's a much bigger game than just the quarterback. He's seriously talented. Shedeur Sanders is on this list not because of what Colorado did last year, but because of what he does. But at a certain point, when it comes to legacy and when it comes to the way that we think of you as a quarterback, winning has to matter. And so,
Right.
the same way that we don't think of Philip Rivers as one of the top quarterbacks of the last 20, 25 years, we shouldn't also think of that for Shedeur Sanders. He put up crazy numbers, like you were saying, really, really solid numbers. And if he had anything resembling an offensive line, who knows what those numbers could have ended up being. But he has to win games. You have to beat teams. You have to find ways to win games. And it's not like he was going up against every juggernaut in the Pac 12 last year. There were some winnable games that he probably should have found a way to lead his team to win. He just didn't. And again, that's nothing on him. This was his first year playing Division One football, right? That's his first year doing that. That's his first real experience doing that. He put up a great performance for them. But the differentiation right now is Jalen Daniels has taken a program in Kansas that couldn't win and made them winners. Shedeur Sanders hasn't done that for Colorado yet. He can make them winners. I believe he can make them winners. I think Colorado can, kind of jump over and succeed, but it's going to be about if Shedeur can actually take them there. It's a big if in my book. I think a lot of people are expecting Colorado to make that jump. I'm a little bit hesitant. I'm not going to be the biggest Colorado homer on this podcast and certainly not in the media, but I think that it's there, it's available, but it's an if in terms of leadership and being able to take his team over the hump and start to put some wins in that win column.
There's a lot of believers. Colorado has the most handle bet on them at I think it's FanDuel that tweeted that out. The most handle
For
bet
what?
on
Making a bowl game or
no to win the national championship.
to win the national championship?
Someone can fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. I saw a tweet last week that
I mean, look, you're probably right because there's a lot of people betting on that. And look, I like the excitement. Don't get me wrong, I love the excitement, and I love what's happened at Colorado with the just absolute resurgence of a dead team that nobody cared. You win one game a couple seasons ago, and you're like, yeah, oh well, it's Colorado. Who cares? They suck. They're bad. And the resurgence that's happened and we talked about it, but they won, several games last season. They could have won a bunch more. They probably should have won a bunch more. They probably should have made a bowl game. If they make a bowl game this season, they're doing what Kansas has done the last couple of years and taking a team that season. I think the national championship hype is maybe a little overblown, but if they can go if Colorado wins 8 games this season, that's a very successful season for the Buffaloes.
oh, absolutely. We're partying like it's 2016 in Boulder
There it is.
if we're winning 8 games. So let's move on down the list, Garrett. Also in the Sunflower State, we have a young gun, the highest rated quarterback that Kansas State has ever signed, Avery Johnson. He takes over late in the year for Will Howard. We talked about that situation on Tuesday's show. You can go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But Avery Johnson was the young hotness at quarterback at Kansas State. And they're pushing all their chips into the middle of the table and betting on him, foregoing another year of eligibility on Will Howard, a very accomplished quarterback in his own right. But Avery Johnson showed some amazing flashes last year, and he showed why he was ranked as high as he was in the recruiting process. I'm all in on him as well. I think that he could very well lead Kansas State to a conference title and a college football playoff berth this year. And he's going to put on a show in that offense in Manhattan. He could be a missing piece that takes Kansas State to a level we haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and he's extremely talented, I think there were some things to be desired in terms of his actual performance on the field. Only completes 56% of his passes. That's got to improve, obviously. Obviously, that's got to improve. We know that. But man, what he can do with his legs, the way that he can really get after it on the ground, he's extremely talented. And I think my big concern, if you can say any, right? He's super talented, looks really good. He's going to be plenty, plenty good in this Kansas State offense. I wonder what losing Colin Klein does to him, right? I wonder what happens now that he's lost his offensive coordinator. Is it a tougher adjustment to pick up this new offense? Is the new offense going to be similar enough to be able to kind of just let it translate? And the big thing is it's not going to really show itself in his legs because you can always just kind of take off and run and make something happen. But does he take that step in the passing game that we want him to take to make him one of these top quarterbacks in the Big 12? I think he can. I think he's plenty talented. That's not the question, obviously. It's more just about does he do it? Does he do it fast enough this year? And then if he can, look out because Kansas State could be, at the top of the Big 12 by the end of the season.
Yeah, got the chance to start the bowl game. Wasn't great. 14 to 31 for 178 yards and a couple touchdowns. But it was against an NC State defense that I'm
Very good
always
NC State
going
defense.
to.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna carry water for the Wolfpack defense as long as Dave Doran's there running that 3-3-5. So, yeah, he can grow a lot. Obviously, he was a true freshman last year. I think he's ready for an expanded role and a full season to start. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Garrett, a little bit different in the Big 12 versus the other conferences. We actually filled out the top five. We're not going to have a debate for the last one or two
Yep.
spots here because I think they're pretty straightforward. Couple more newcomers to the conference, but not a newcomer to college football. We've got old man Cam Rising at Utah and number 4. I'm assuming he's playing. We were on Cam watch all year last year, it seemed like, until they finally announced that he would just be punting and coming back for year 7 of eligibility for him this year. He's a
Yeah.
big reason when he's healthy, he is one of the most underrated quarterbacks, not just in the Big 12, but all of college football. And he's a big reason why I'm so high on Utah finally breaking through and making it to the playoff this year.
Yeah, and Utah is gonna look. I'm a little bit of a Utah homer on this podcast, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I've been sticking up for Cam Rising the last several years since he took over. Obviously, last year not really because he wasn't able to play, and you saw the glaring difference in that offense with Cam Rising not playing. But with him out there, Utah is one of the better teams in the Big 12, and in my opinion, should be, in Arlington at the end of the year. If everything goes the way that it should, they always play great defense in Utah. They know their offense, they know what to do. They play a real physical style, and man, they should just be really, really good. So for Cam, really it's just going to be, can you stay upright this year? Like, can you bounce back? He's surprisingly athletic, right? He's got a lot of ability to run the football. A lot of people don't necessarily always see. He threw for over 3,000 yards a couple years ago. And oh yeah, by the way, he led his team to a couple consecutive Rose Bowls, and won the Pac-12 a couple years in a row. So one of the more accomplished quarterbacks, actually not maybe, definitely the most accomplished quarterback in the Big 12. He's been in the big spots more than anybody else has. Really, we're just saying, can you stay upright? Can you bounce back from the injury and prove that you're still the quarterback that you were a couple years ago? If you can, watch out. If not, then I guess it could be another long season for Utah, watching their defense play lights out and then get like 76 passing yards per game or something like that.
Well, there's a lot of options for number 5 here. I'm thinking Daquan Finn transferring down to Baylor could be interesting.
Good quarterback.
Racco Becht in year 2 at Iowa State. Baron Morton finally has some weapons to throw to at Texas Tech. Heck, KJ Jefferson at UCF might be really slept on. I think he's going to be a beast that smells on offense. But at number 5, we're going with Noah Fafita out at Arizona. This is a guy that was on no one's radar to start 2023 because he was behind Jaden Delora, a guy that
Yep.
we had in the top 5 quarterbacks of the Pac-12 in last year's preseason. Delora gets hurt midway through last year, and all Fafita does is come off the bench, throw for almost 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and lead Arizona to the best season they've had in quite some time. So obviously, a lot has changed in Arizona. Jed Fish is off to Washington, new coaching staff, new vision for that program, but a lot of the guys stayed. They were nervous that they were going to lose Noah in the portal. He stays. A lot of playmakers are staying as well. And they're one of the favorites to at least get a spot in Arlington for the Big 12 championship this year. They got a tough road, not as clear cut as some other teams, but I think they've got the quarterback to make a run at it.
Oh, for sure. And a very, very good season for Fifita. I think he's maybe one of the more underappreciated players in college football. He performed extremely well, completed 72% of his passes last season. That's pretty dang good
Off
for
the bench, right? Like that's
yeah.
just something that you never expect from your backup.
And I mean, pretty much from the word go. I mean, his first game was, against Northern Arizona. I think was that week 1 or week 2. I mean, I know that he didn't start that game, obviously played some, reserve roles, but by the time they hit, what was it, Washington at the end of September, he was their starter and he didn't really look back. And I mean, he loses his first couple games against Washington and USC, and then he just rattles off a bunch of victories and beats some very good teams. And so, I think especially I'm looking at this performance too. Arizona State, finish off your regular season, throws for 527 on 73% completions. I talked about Quinn being disgusting a little bit earlier in this podcast. That's disgusting. That is offensive. Nobody should be allowed to do that. And it comes out with a 216 rating at the end of that game. Jeez, man, that's just video game numbers. So look, he's a good quarterback, and they beat Oklahoma in the bowl game and are off and running. So I think this could be a really good season for Fifita. At this point, you just have to ask yourself, what does that offense look like now that Jed Fish is gone? Is the offense going to be able to stay up? They still have some playmakers, still have some very good receivers. It's just all about, can they keep the offense rolling? Can they, continue to succeed now that Fish is gone? And if they can, kind of start well, get some momentum on their side, I think this could, again, be a really good season for Arizona. And a lot of the thing that these teams are seeing is there's some good quarterbacks that if they play up to these standards, right? If Jalen Daniels plays up to their standards, it's going to be a great season. If Avery Johnson plays up to standards, it's going to be a great season. If Cam Rising plays up to standards, it's going to be a great season. So this is a conference where they have some quarterbacks that could prove the outcome depending on their performances, right? Like if all of those quarterbacks end up playing really well, then look out. There's going to be some good football played in the Big 12. And if those guys start to fall short, that'll be the storyline, right? Like if Avery Johnson at Kansas State doesn't improve his passing ability, then Kansas State's not going to be that good and they'll drop out of the contention, and that's that. But again, if all these quarterbacks play really well and play up to what they can do, Big 12 is far from dead. They're going to be one of the more fun conferences to watch all season long.
Yeah, I'm not joking when I say there are legitimately 10 teams I could see making a run at the Big 12 title this year. I rattled off a lot of their quarterbacks, but I didn't even get to, Garrett Green at West Virginia, who PFF somehow has like the highest rated returning quarterback.
Yeah. Very good quarterback, and he could prove himself.
And we have another geriatric unit guy in Alan Bowman at Oklahoma State.
Alan Bowman, yeah.
You can't discount the experience that he has. So, and he has a lot of talent around him with your guy Ollie Gordon too. So, there's a lot of fun guys in the Big 12. I can't wait to see how it shakes out.
Gracious, how